Bronx. You're on WOR. Go ahead, please.
Mr. Oliver, am I on?
You're on.
Mr. Oliver, my subject is a bit different from the theater, but however, I'm one of the passengers that rides the C train in the afternoon.
Yes.
And nearly every day, sir, we have to wait from about 20 to a half an hour for the local train. Now, it's about 5 Ds that pass on the express track. We've complained. We've done all the necessary thing. The problem persists. What do you think we can do to get some help? And you're such an informative person, and the show is widely listened to. Do you have any suggestions, sir?
Well, the people over at the Transit Authority listen to the show. I know they do, and I think they've heard you. But I have no information about it. You just have to keep the pressure on to try to get them to... Is there a specific time that you can show up and get the right train?
Sure, it's never on schedule.
Oh.
Yes, and it's interesting because I used to work 53rd and Park, and now I'm at the new headquarters in Long Island City, so you probably know the firm that I work for. But when I switched at 42nd and pick up the number 7, it runs every 3 seconds. You just stand there, one is pulling out, another's coming in. I'm wondering if it's just the clientele of the people that are riding the train or what, but it is so frustrating. Every afternoon, and we pay the same $1.15, you know, as those other individuals. And sometime when your neighborhood has changed somewhat, you seem to get inferior everything. And I was just wondering what other channel we can take. You
got to keep the pressure on that Transit Authority.
Yes. But however, getting back to the theater, it's not what color the person is. It's who's doing the best job. You want the best for your money. You want to see the best performance, so it's the best person that's rated for the position. That's the way I really feel.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Have
Thanks
a good
for calling.
evening.
You
Sure,
too.
Bye-bye now.
Bye. 212-398-9404. Brooklyn, you're on WOR. Go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Dick Oliver.
Hiya.
All right. I was just wondering about Nelson Mandela and, like, world leaders. Like, some are overrated, and are there, like, more opportunistic people or individuals going for glory instead of world peace? And is it much harder to achieve than it seems? I mean, without all the media and without all the corruption, well, not the corruption, but all the big story headlines, beneath all of that, does it seem like this world will ever come to a true peace between all the people?
Well, it's doing a lot better in the last year or so than it's done in a long time. That's all I can say.
Well, okay, we're not going to play God, but what would you suggest that the United States start doing?
Well, I think the United States is on the road to being the power in the world that's bringing about democracy around the world, and a lot of the communist countries are what did I hear today? It was kind of interesting. The Soviet Union is now allowing foreign money into the Soviet Union without questioning its citizens as to where it got it, which was one of the the little walls are breaking down all over the place. A Soviet hockey player now wants to play on I believe the Detroit team, without giving up his citizenship. I mean, little things are happening all over the place, which are kind of healthy, I think. But I don't know what specifically I could say to you. I just think it's a better time to be than when everybody's at each other's throats and threatening to do this or do that, you know?
You think that we should pray more and have more like religious-type programs on TV and radio?
Can't hurt.
Oh, boy.
Okay.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thanks for calling.
Bye-bye.
212-398-9404. Long Island, you're on WOR.
Hi, Dick. I really enjoy your show.
Thanks.
I'm calling about a different subject also.
Yes.
As you know, and everybody knows, our Governor Cuomo does not believe in the death penalty.
Right.
And needless to say, our prisons are very overcrowded. And listening to the news tonight, I felt very bad hearing about that other cab driver and about the 2 police officers that were slain, and their wives were disappointed. They said that the criminals should have gotten the death penalty, for killing police officers.
Right.
Well, I agree with that.
Right.
But the reason that I'm calling you is that I heard a story the other night on the news, and it was saying about the prisons being so crowded, and the one problem that they had with the discipline was the fact that the prisoners themselves were making weapons out of pork chop bones.
Right.
Now, I thought a prison was a prison where they serve hamburger 50 different ways, stew different ways. Where in the world, with the situation where there's so many homeless people today, can we come across serving prisoners pork chop and probably steak? That's a prison?
Oh, I don't know about the menu, about what's on the menu in the prisons, but I suppose they buy up a lot of pork and serve it when the price is right. I mean,
well, it's true. I believe they buy pork now. There's an awful lot of surplus pork. My parents are senior citizens, and they get pork in cans that they can go pick up at a distribution center. And I'm not saying to starve the prisons. I believe in a nutritious diet and all. But if there's a problem with weapons as far as bones, why don't they just eliminate all meals with bones?
Okay.
I mean, it sounds like a ridiculous subject, but if this is posing a problem for danger, I can't see why something so simple they can't take care of with their own.
Well, the truth is you can make a weapon out of virtually anything.
Yeah,
anything.
I know, but I was laughing. I was cooking dinner.
I think the same story had some guy making a weapon out of his tooth. I mean, shaving it down to cut somebody.
Right.
So what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Well, I just had to express my feelings too. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. 212-398-9404. We go to Queens. You're on WOR. Go ahead, please.
Good evening, Dick. How are you?
Good.
Dick, I'm calling tonight about weapons, and especially the latest slaughter in the city of the two young people, one in Brooklyn and a machine gunning up in the Bronx. And we do have a law on the books that a person caught with a gun gets 1 year in jail. But it seems that the courts just don't enforce these laws. What are your feelings about that?
Well, they made a big deal about it when they, remember Mayor Koch, you saw him slamming doors, slamming jailhouse doors, and you're gonna go away. What doesn't seem to happen? It doesn't seem to happen because there's no will to make it happen. And the previous caller mentioned that there is a shortage of prison space.
Yes, I heard that.
The public doesn't want to pay for more prisons. It screams about crime, but it doesn't really want to pay for more prisons. The state and the city have increased the available space. So it's a whole mess. It's a whole, I don't know what to say.
It's a terrible thing when you have over 1,800 poor souls murdered in this city in a year.
Mm-hmm.
And
sure is.
Nobody cares, Dick. Nobody seems to care.
Well, I think a lot of people care, especially when it hits close to home.
Yeah.
But nobody seems to be able to do anything about it. I mean, that's the point.
Yeah.
I thank you.
I thank you, Dick.
Thanks for calling.
Good evening.
212-398-9404, Manhattan. You're on WOR. Hello.
Hello, Dick.
Hiya.
Hi. In the late 1960s, the International Court of Justice in The Hague in Holland passed an edict making it internationally illegal to refer to Asians as the yellow race or to refer to them as yellow in any way. And they're actually considered the white race, and they're white people.
Mm-hmm.
And let me ask you a question. Have you really ever seen a yellow person, or for that matter, a red Indian?
What are you asking me for?
Well, I mean, we know what the color yellow is and the color red.
Yeah. Well, here's Actors Equity talking about yellow facing.
Well, Actors Equity never heard about this edict from the International Court of Justice.
Well, forget about the International Court of Justice. That's a fraud, too, because we're not even...
No, it's not.
We're not even a part of it. So
it passed this edict saying that Asians ought not to be called the yellow race any longer, and they're really not yellow.
Well, that has as much weight as the UN does, as far as what people can or cannot do.
Well, I think people ought to believe in the UN. But coming back to Actors Equity,
I believe in it. It just doesn't do its job. I think that's a good question.
I think you ought to go take a tour of the United Nations.
Oh, I've been over there many times.
The thing is, we're talking about is not the United Nations. We're talking about Actors Equity.
Yeah.
And I really believe that Yul Brynner would have been hard to top as an Asian in The King and I.
I agree with you. And the other fellow, I think Marlon Brando would have been hard to top as the Okinawan in Tea House of the August Moon. And I think that's the point. That's the point here.
So this has nothing to do with skin color.
Well, it does because...
No, it doesn't.
Wait. No, you can't just say it does. No, it doesn't. You have to, let's share. This union has made it a primary issue and has said that it's going to withhold its services, and that the producers have said that they might pull their show out precisely because of what you say. It doesn't matter.
But they're not talking about skin color. They're talking about ethnic origin.
And
there's a difference.
Oh, okay. So what's it? All right, let me ask you that then, because you beg the question. Do you think that's proper to talk about ethnic origins?
What do you mean?
Well, you're painting yourself into the corner.
No, well,
I said,
I'm not
is
sure.
it proper for a union to demand that this ethnic origin be cast for such and such a role rather than that ethnic origin? Your words.
Well, I personally feel that the person who's best qualified to play the part should get it.
So why are we batting around all of these words about ethnic origins and yellow faces and Eurasians?
Because the topic of skin color, people are talking about painting people's faces yellow,
That's
and other
correct.
people are talking about white people playing
Exactly.
roles when Asians are white, and I'm
Exactly.
letting you know about that
Okay.
edict that
well,
was
I thank you
passed.
for that edict. That edict has about as much weight as the paper I'm holding here. Anyway, I thank you for that.
Yeah, about the dwarf tossing,
Yes.
I think the issue is greatly exacerbated by Nelson Mandela and his...
Oh, God, never mind. Pot this guy down. It's a screwball who calls up all the time. Brooklyn, you're on WOR. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, hi. I want to talk about two things relating to the SNL crisis or bailout, whatever you want to call it. One thing is there's a thing called a RICO statute, which Senator DeConcini is now trying to mitigate or lessen in order to lessen that law or statute. And basically because it might affect him in the in his dealings with SNL. It might
Well, I don't
get
think
him.
you can do that legally. I don't think you can change a law for a specific crime.
Well, I'm sure you're
ex
familiar with
post
what he's
facto.
trying to do to.
Well, I don't think you can do it ex post facto. In other words, the law that was on the book at the time of the alleged crime is the law that will be enforced.
That's the interesting thing. That's what he's trying to do.
I know he's trying to do it. You can't do it.
Well, that he's attempting to do it. Let's see what
Okay,
happens
good
if
luck.
it goes through Congress. Second thing is this sort of scapegoat mentality the Democrats are trying to push forward of making Neil Bush take all the blame for this SNL thing.
Well, you think they should forget him?
What?
You think they should forget him?
No, of course not. If he's guilty of something,
Okay.
they should prosecute him.
They should go after all of them. Go after
I
the
agree,
Democrat.
but he is like such a small percentage of what happened that went
Well, he's
wrong.
got the name.
Excuse me?
He's got the name.
You're right, he does.
Well, that's
but,
why.
It's a thing the Democrats are going to try to do, to use him as a scapegoat.
I mean, hundreds of kids took the bar exam yesterday. The focal point was only on one of them.
Right.
So what? You got the name. You know, you sometimes pay the price. Sometimes you get the price too.
That's true. Now, when is
Well, let me ask you this: do you think perhaps that Neil Bush got a lot of this business because of his name?
I think he did.
Yeah.
I think he definitely did.
Yeah.
But he's really not the problem. The
Well,
Congress who let this thing go on is the problem.
Okay.
You know, vote all the Democrats out of office, and we won't have any problems.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah, that's
Well,
pretty much it. Yeah.
You got it. Okay. Well, I thought it was. I thought all this happened during the Reagan administration. I'm sorry. I realize that it happened because of Democrats. This is a stinking thing that involves Republicans and Democrats, and if you take the attitude you've got, you're going to lose it. But I thank you for calling. 212-398-9404. Manhattan, you're on WOR. Go ahead.
Hello, Dick.
Hiya.
First of all, I think it should be mandatory that every city in the United States have a program like yours.
Oh, thank you.
Dick, I tried to get you the other week when the testimony was given on this DNA testing with the joggers.
Yes.
The impression seems to be given inadvertently, I think, by a number of the reporters, that the testing completely ruled out the samples as having been migrated.
I know. The black press and those who are willing to accept that conclusion are pumping that up as though it were something else. There's something else that's going on. I'm going to let you finish in a minute, but I just want to get this off my chest. They're also implying that if no semen was found, there's no rape. Well, that's baloney. There's a rape without semen, pal.
Yeah.
They're always that's not necessary for the crime of rape.
Yeah.
That's another factor that's being pursued by some of the really irresponsible members of the press and the black community, and by people who have been calling up this program saying that the DNA cleared the boys. Well, it doesn't clear the boys.
Well, no matter which way the verdict goes, you know it's going to be quite controversial.
Of course.
And having retired from an allied field, anything in the papers in that field I read very carefully. check your own tape stick of your own reporter, the woman that called in that night.
Mm-hmm.
She gave the impression that ruled them out completely.
Well,
and as you know...
I remember the night that was given, and we had a great debate here about the word inconclusive, and the word inconclusive was used in our report. I know it because that's where I got my...
Well, I tried to get to that night with the thing. But you'll get a lot of calls on it, and not to try to oversimplify it, but if you put saliva, one in a test tube, it's very easy to trace with DNA.
Mm-hmm.
You put two samples,
mm-hmm.
you're having trouble.
Mm-hmm.
You put 5 or 6, and all they can say is maybe you could or maybe you couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And basically this is what's happening, but I think anytime anyone calls on that, you've got to set them straight, because then it's going to be thrown out over and over again.
Some people choose not to believe that. Some people choose to believe what they want to believe, and they'll continue to do so.
Can I ask you another question?
Sure.
I'm not sure that I'm worried about this trend of interviewing the lawyers and other participants, it seems, while the cases are going on.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that sort of trying to build up public opinion on a case?
Well, if the lawyer is and I found several of them who can be fair and honest and can give us some background about what's going on, I think it's helpful, because we don't have that opportunity. The lawyer that I had on here, as a matter of fact, is not trying the case right now. He represents one of the defendants in a future case. I would not put him on while he was trying his own case, but he was on there as an experienced and insightful observer of what's going on for a lot of these issues that we've been talking about, and I think he conducted himself quite fairly.
I think it wasn't just this case, but other cases. They've had lawyers that are involved with the case.
Mm-hmm.
I completely agree. Once a verdict is handed down, can be debated from now to kingdom come.
Mm-hmm.
But I think beforehand, I'm kind of worried that we're setting up this thing of build up as much pressure as we can.
Well, I'm worried about inaccuracy and people who are walking around not open-minded but with holes in their heads and start believing things like you can hear it all over the radio now from some stations about how the DNA proved that the boys were innocent, and a lot of baloney like that. And I don't know how to combat that except to get people who are close to the evidence, and you can't get anybody to make that kind of an assertion or state the facts, and somebody who has been involved with that. And our lawyer, the lawyer that I had on our show, did just that. He explained
I wasn't picking on that one lawyer, Dick. Okay. I just meant the whole general trend of, making a whole comment on cases before the verdict comes in.
I understand.
Yeah, but otherwise, I don't see how you keep your temper at times. I think you're an angel.
Hey, I enjoy this. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Bye-bye. 212-398-9404. Manhattan, you're on WOR.
Hello, Dick.
Hiya.
Who was the best Mexican actor?
Anthony Quinn.
J. Carroll Nash.
Oh, J. Carroll Nash is right. You got it.
Remember him? He was an Irishman.
You're right. You
remember Brother Luigi Pasquale?
Yeah, it all comes back. I know
you remember Luigi Pasquale?
Not. Was that the guy on the radio?
Yeah.
What was his name?
Luigi Pasquale. He used to write the letters to his mother in Italy.
Right.
Oh, let's go back. I heard him 50 years ago on radio.
Yeah.
He was the best Mexican actor.
But you're making a point here. You're making a point here, though.
Right. That's what I'm trying to say.
I got you. We lose a lot of talent if we try to.
Life. He was a hell of an actor.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks for calling. 212-398-9404. Long Island, you're on WOR.
Dick, who invited you to my house Monday night to eat my pasta warmed up in the microwave? That's what I want to know.
Did they do that to you, too?
Yes, Monday night I had spaghetti and it was warmed up in the microwave.
Unbelievable.
I mean, if my mother's listening to this program and she hears that my wife put the pasta in the microwave, she'd come down and shoot both of us.
Well, I straightened out the situation in my unhappy abode by saying no more pasta in the microwave.
But, Dick, you almost made it sound like the pasta was raw and you put tomato paste on it.
No, what it was the pasta had been cooked and was cold, right?
Right.
And the sauce had been cooked, but it was cold, too. So it sits out there, and there's this nice little note saying, stick this in there and push this button. So I do that, and it goes down 59, 58, 57, all the way down. And I pull this thing out, and the plate's still cold, but some of the pasta's hot, some is not. It's lumpy. The sauce is just a mess.
Oh, they didn't put a note for you to turn it 3/4 the way around before. I don't know what you got a bad train, but coming from the Bronx where we grew up eating pasta the next day, Dick, the secret is to just put it in the frying pan with a drop of water.
I gotcha.
Warm it up that way. And
that's right.
Take the microwave and throw it out the window.
You're right. As a matter of fact, pasta cooked the second day, for my money, is better than the first day.
You got it, Dick. You got it. But next time, get rid of the microwave. No pasta in the microwave.
You got it.
Good night, Dick.
Thank
Keep
you.
it up. Bye-bye.
Thanks for calling. 212-398-9404. Manhattan, you're on WOR. Go ahead.
Listen, about the SNLs, they're lying to us. When Carter was in office, I was trying to scream at the public that 20% was going to destroy us. And it would especially destroy us if they let it teeter-totter down to something normal. The Congress should have been intelligent enough to make a legal interest rate, and then the SNLs wouldn't be closing. The banks are in the same trouble, and the foreign countries are in the same trouble. I think that Volcker actually set out to destroy capitalism because that 20% did us in. It even did Trump in. He thought that he could outsmart and outrun the interest game, and he's getting caught. And a lot of our real estate deals, and incidentally, it drove half of our business abroad because it couldn't get the financial support. At 20% was madness. And all
right, you put a lot on our plate. I thank you for calling.
Make a comment about your reference to the interview you had with the lawyer for one of the defendants in the Jogger case. You said he acquitted himself well and so on, and I think in general that's true. But he made one remark, and he repeated it, that I think was that he should have been caught up on. It should have been pointed out. He said repeatedly, he talked about these boys as poor, which was sort of a bid for sympathy for them as being from poverty-stricken homes. They are not. That's one of the shocking things about this case, is that they came from quite stable homes with nice parents living in good apartment buildings.
I do not recall this word poor being...
And as a matter of fact, he was interviewed later that evening on television and repeated almost word for word what he said to you, so I knew it was a prepared statement. And he said again that they were poor.
Okay.
They're not poor.
Fair enough, if that's what he said. I thank you. 212-398-9404. New Jersey, you're on WOR. Go ahead, please.
Hey, Dick Oliver. It just boggles the mind that since the days of Bert Lance in the Jimmy Carter era, that they haven't done much with banking regulations. I know that I'm an accountant, and I used to be in public accounting in those days, and I examined a lot of banks, and it always amazed me, and savings institutions, it always amazed me that the FS and LIC never took note of an early failure known as the Franklin Savings Institute of New York, which really was a bank run down by many of those farmers from Long Island that had money, sold their properties, took over the running of the banks, and that bank failed. And in all the years since I was in public accounting, a bank and a savings and loan institution go through many audits, independent audits from CPAs, a banking committee audits them, the American Institute Bankers audits them. They have about 4 or 5 independent audits, and there's always fraud and swindling and internal mismanagement. And I've always wondered why, especially perhaps the savings and the Franklin Institute may have been something that was overlooked. But why, since the days of Bert Lance, haven't they done anything? The only thing they've seemed to have done is make it harder for depositors.
You know what Willie Sutton said with another aspect of banking? He asked him why he robbed banks. He answered, that's where the money is.
Yeah, I think I've heard of that. Well, I just want to make those 2 comments.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Queens, you're on WOR. Go ahead.
Hello, Dick.
Hiya.
I just wanted to tell you that I've been listening to your program for a number of years, and I truly enjoy it.
Thanks.
I agree with the listener. It should be in more towns all over the country. It's truly democracy in action. My remark is concerning the young man that said that Democrats should not be reelected this coming 1990. I agree with you. The Republicans are part of it as well. Therefore, what we should do this year is send a message to all politicians. In 1990, not a single incumbent should be reelected. I think if we did that once, they'd all get the message.
I love the idea. I don't see it happening, though.
Agreed.
Okay,
Take care.
Thanks. Take care of yourself. Let's go for our final call to Manhattan. You're on WOR. Go ahead, please.
First of all, I learned a lot from you, Dick. What did I learn? I learned to laugh so I can keep from crying what's going on. Now, why am I calling, right?
Why are you calling?
The other night you dismissed out of hand a caller about the post office, right?
I don't remember the call. Tell me.
All right. Well, let me tell you, there's a new system that some genius jerk dreamed up that if you want your letters delivered promptly the next day, all you have to do is, in addition to your zip code, put a +4 code on. That means another 4 numbers.
All right.
So I call up the post office,
right.
What do you call them? Not Attorney General, Postmaster General.
Right, yeah.
And I say, what's the name of the postmaster? Kelly. Well, where is he? I want to talk to this. Well, he hasn't been around for weeks. He's in and out of the office. So I says, can you give me a list or send me a list of the +4 numbers to expedite the mail?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she says, you have to come down to the post office and get it. Wait. Then I said, will you please give me the +4 zip code number for the address where I live? So she says to me, oh, I'm sorry, I have to go into another room to get it.
Uh-huh.
And this is the post office. If they ever want to raise, I want people to remember.
Did you ever get your +4 number?
Nope. He had to go into another room, and she wouldn't do that.
So your mail is as late as ours?
Right.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate your call. Thank you.
Tonight. Hello. I called when you had the first guest on, John, in connection with the use of mace.
Right, Jack Chartier.
Yes, my question was, what is the experience with legalization of mace in the other 48 states? Was there any indication how they have been doing this?
Well, basically, I did ask him, what difference it makes. There aren't any hard data, hard statistics, is basically what he said.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Another thing that's crossed my mind many times, they used to have an old-fashioned police whistle, that cylindrical whistle people used to carry around. I think if they had those whistles and blew them, and it's unmistakable sound, and with more police around, hopefully that would be one way to combat this.
Dennis, what do you think? Whistles, does that make a difference?
Well, I don't think so. There's so much noise in the city, and to hear something like that, especially in the daytime, you wouldn't hear something like that.
A lot of times they say, instead of saying you're being assaulted, cry fire or something. Does that work out better?
Yeah, you asking me?
Yes.
Well, I don't know about that. I couldn't tell you about people calling fire and in reference to that type of situation. I mean, it sounds good, but years ago, the police officers used to be able to tap their nightsticks, but now we have radios and all this other stuff because, if you need help, you can't rely upon a nightstick. I don't believe you can rely on a whistle either.
Thanks, Leon, for calling. Let's go to Dina, who's calling from Queens. Hi, you're on WOR, and what's on your mind tonight?
Hi, Claire. I'm one of, I call him Sensei, students at one of the community centers that he teaches at. And I just wanted to say that I don't think a lot of people realize what self-defense can really do for them. A lot of people go in for the physical aspect. Oh, I could beat people up, And in the pretty much 3 years that I've been training under him, I think I learned more about how to carry myself, and it's more of a deterrent than what I could feel I could use to back up my attitude. For example, the other day on the bus, there weren't many people on, and I noticed a gentleman I didn't even see him, but I knew he was there, and he was getting closer and closer to me. And before he was even able to tap the back of my seat, I had no idea what he was going to do. I turned and looked at him, and 3 years ago, I would have never looked at him. I would have ran or, hovered and shivered.
So your body language, your attitude, your psychological being was a little bit different.
And exactly, and I think me just turning to him deterred him to do anything, and he got off on the next stop, being if he was going to, or what kind of message I sent to him. I don't know, but he did get off the bus, and I knew I felt better. I was very, very scared at the moment, but I
But I thank you for calling
that.
Because you're making a very good point. It's really, self-defense is more than just a physical thing. It is a psychological approach, is it not, Dennis?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, that's the key. I mean, because you can give everybody all the tools in the world, and if, like I said, if they don't have the courage or the training to use them, what good are they?
Well, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to hear from Jackie Mason and one of his solutions to dealing with the crime problem in New York.
We're discussing the crime problem because it confronts us every time you walk in the street, and it's a dramatic problem because you always heard about crime, but very few people actually, especially in the better neighborhoods of the city, ever had to deal with it personally and confront it from their own experience. And all of a sudden, the things that people would like to push aside because they think it's other people's problems began to realize that it's their own problem because it's happening out to everybody on every level. It's not an isolated situation of a couple of slum areas where people who might be too selfish to be concerned. Now even the most selfish person knows that this is a problem that could hit him every day or night. Almost everybody you meet has been either attacked or almost attacked. And every time you walk out of the house, you're always wondering if you're safe on Tite Street. If you turn the corner, will somebody kill you? And if they don't get you in the street, will they get you in the building? People are killed in their own apartments. There's no place you feel safe without bars.
Have you been concerned about your own personal safety?
Positively I'm concerned about my own personal safety. But the truth of the matter is that I'm concerned about everybody's safety everywhere in this city.
So how did you go about trying to get support?
I could manage to solve the problem because I'm lucky enough to become a hit and I make a lot of money suddenly. And a lucky man like me could be selfish enough to say to himself, listen, I could have a bodyguard and walk the streets protected. But not many people could afford a bodyguard. And it's a terrible thing to have to sit in fear and walk in fear every place you go. War zones in different parts of the world don't have as many threats to their lives and not as many people killed in actually war zones as are killed in New York every year. There are more people killed here than in places that are actually at war. We forget that.
So you had this idea, and how did you go about trying to gain support for it?
So we got this idea, we said to ourselves that we ought to bring it to somebody with credibility so that the people will take it very seriously and not think of it as maybe some kind of a joke that a comedian decided to whip up. So we went to see Raoul Felder, who is the top divorce attorney in this city and this country right now, and I know he's always concerned with civic problems and responsibilities. He has a great fierce interest in what happens in New York, and he's involved in every campaign, and I've heard that he always gives his own money to different causes. So I thought that I would, since he's a very, very dear personal friend of mine, to see if I could get him involved, and he jumped at the idea and he loved it. Then we took it also to Alan Grubman, another attorney of mine who's a hot character in this town, and he loved it, so we immediately started to talk to who might be the people who could put it into effect. So we thought of Ward, the ex-police commissioner Ward.
Ben Ward, yes.
Ben Ward, who has a wife who's a very popular singer that worked with me in Atlantic City, so I became close friends of theirs. And Ward loved the idea, and Ward immediately took me to Lee Brown, and this whole thing mushroomed and snowballed very fast. And before you know it, something that was just a theory became something that became a very practical possibility because Lee Brown seemed to enjoy it, he thought. He listened very carefully to Ward explaining it to him, and Raoul Felder and Alan Grubman.
Well, let me ask you this, because Mayor Dinkins was quoted in Monday's New York Post as saying it wasn't the sort of thing the city would do, but he might consider a telethon to raise money that would go, for example, to Crime Watch programs in neighborhoods.
Well, frankly, I'm not a politician, and I wouldn't know what's the best way to do it, and I would defer to Dinkins' intelligence on the subject. I happen to have the highest respect for Dinkins, even though in the campaign you heard about the problems I had, where people started to think about my character and which side I'm on and what I'm doing. I got involved in the campaign because I wanted to defeat Koch, because I felt not enough was being done about crime, even though I had nothing against Koch personally, and I felt we need a great crime fighter like Giuliani. And I didn't even know Dinkins would be in the campaign. But when Dinkins came into the campaign, I told a few jokes, and people thought I have something against him. It so happens that I think he's a compassionate, wonderful guy who really cares a lot about the city. I know of him for many years, and everybody who knows him knows he's a very responsible, concerned guy who doesn't care about anything but doing something to stop crime.
We all care about stopping crime.
We all know that he cares a lot and that he's working very hard on the subject. He's under the gun very severely. He has a terrible, he's in in a terrible predicament, and I have great compassion for the predicament he's in because there is no money for the police department, and he's out of tricks because it's so difficult to ask anybody for more taxes. Since the federal government is overtaxing the people and Bush has his own troubles, the trouble is that we have no money to fight the situation. So I said to myself, hey, this will help the city administration tremendously if we come up with one very obvious idea. Sometimes something is so obvious that nobody thinks of it. We have money for cancer funds, for AIDS funds, and rightly so, to help to benefit all people who have a severe problem about some kind of a terrible disease that we all have compassion about. And people are very compassionate for these problems and give all their money immediately when they know a cause is very severe and serious.
But Jackie, let me ask you this. Do you think politics sometimes gets in the way? It's a good idea, but whether it gets executed or not, sometimes it can be politics.
It hasn't been executed yet, even though Ward and Brown both seem to have loved it, and they brought it to the mayor, and maybe the mayor hasn't had an I don't want to be presumptuous enough to judge why the mayor didn't jump on it that fast. He has a lot of problems and troubles. This is not an easy city to govern, and most people say it's totally ungovernable. So I can't say, oh my God, because he didn't do it in a minute, that therefore there's something wrong here. I say that there's no question about it, that as soon as he could take this seriously, as soon as he sees the significance of it, if it's presented to him correctly, I feel he positively would do it. And if he hasn't done it yet, I don't know why, and I can't presume to know why.
But, I think we need more citizens coming up with creative solutions. I mean, that's what we're looking for.
I think this is a perfect solution, because I think the people would be aroused immediately, because when people see that a disease that they themselves are not afflicted with, but just because they have compassion for other people who have it, they immediately give so much of their time and effort to help, because there's a well of decency and compassion in the people of this city. And here is a case where they themselves and their own families are affected with it every minute of every day, every time they walk in or out of their house, every time they lock the door or afraid to walk in the street, and every time they hear from a member of their family. Almost every family that you talk to will tell you about a relative they have who was either mugged or almost mugged or, God forbid, hurt or killed. Everybody is affected by it.
And you know what happens also?
The fears in everybody's heart, even if they never were affected by it, because they see it on almost every corner.
When people become a victim of crime, sometimes they feel like they're victimized twice. I remember talking with someone whose brother had died, and afterwards she said what people would say was, what was he doing in that neighborhood? What was he doing on that street corner? They couldn't believe that he was just an innocent victim, because if they believed that, it made them feel vulnerable.
Well, the truth of the matter is, you hear every time you say, was somebody mugged, you ask them the same question, was it in the middle of the night? Somehow they say, like what you're asking. They're hoping somehow it was in the middle of the night, so they should feel free, at least if it's early in the evening. Then they hear not only was it early in the evening, it was early in the afternoon. Not only was it not on an empty street, it was on a packed street. Not only did they not even leave the building, they were still in the elevator. Or right after they locked the door, they still were in their own apartment, and somebody pretended to be a mailman or delivering a television set. You really don't feel safe anyplace. The simple statistics of the subject are unbelievable when you stop to think that something like 150 people are killed every year in New York in murder cases.
So would you take a self-defense course?
I'm sorry?
Would you take a self-defense course? What are you doing to ensure your own personal safety?
Well, I walk very carefully and very slowly, and I look around very hard, and subconsciously everybody does, whether they admit it or not. I don't care if a guy is 7 feet tall and has 3 bodyguards, he's still nervous. I can't deny that I avoid a dark street, and I avoid a dark neighborhood, and I look around very carefully, and I'm always with buddies and friends, and usually with bodyguards. It's a very nerve-wracking way to have to live. And I say the whole feeling would be almost completely eliminated. You can't eliminate it completely, but it would have such a tremendous impact if all of a sudden you saw a cop on almost every corner.
Well, Jackie, I want to thank you for calling in and for caring and for giving us some solutions. I'd love to hear from listeners. What do you think? A telethon? Would you contribute money so that we could get more police, money for Crime Watch programs?
Community that complains that they're the victims of most crime is more interested in blacks and Spanish getting off so that they can feel they've beaten the white racist system. That's what's really important to them, putting it over on whitey. And I say, as Marcus Aurelius said, stand erect or be made to stand erect. And that's the solution.
Okay, well, Dennis Boodle is on the line. He's an expert in self-defense, a detective sergeant with the New York City Transit Police. Dennis, you would agree there's not enough just putting more cops on the street. The problem has a lot more depth than that.
Yeah, I don't think that every cop in every corner is going to stop the crime. That's not going to be the answer to everything. There's some values that I think that that we have to bring back into our society as far as the family is concerned and so on. But
Mayor Dinkins had said at one point last week that adults have to teach children to tell the difference between right and wrong.
Oh, I agree.
It starts there.
Yeah, it does. It starts in the home, and again, without just talking from the self-defense point of view, I mean, the criminals are going to go where there's no policemen. You'll never be able to get enough policemen to cover every block or every street in the city.
But the criminals also know that the system itself is absolutely overwhelmed when it comes to jails, prosecutors. Everything is overwhelmed. Everything is stretched to the limits. Is it not?
Well, I would assume so. Yeah, I mean, that's quite evident if you see what's going on now. I mean, with the rate of crime and what's going on even at Rikers Island. But again, I don't want to shift from what my expertise is in. I don't want to get into that.
It is a big pressing problem. We're also talking about what difference can one person make. Thank you for calling, and let's go now to Teresa from Long Island. You're on WOR, and what would you like to say to us, Teresa?
Oh, hi, Claire. I'm so happy to hear this program on tonight.
Well, good.
Because for so long, and every talk show shows the women who've been raped, mugged, and it's always been, this passive kind of, approach. And I only saw, I think it was Curtis Lee, one day doing a self-defense course. It was kind of a joke, They had a big man come out and the woman tried to tackle him. But I'd like to talk about the seriousness of self-defense, and maybe Dennis could leave, what schools are giving these. And what I'd like to know is, has anyone thought of incorporating this into the junior high school or the high school for the young kids? Girls especially are vulnerable.
That's a good idea.
As part of the phys ed program. And to try to get away with this, well, what can you do? It used to be like, give them all your money, do whatever they say, and I think it has to change from that. And I think this self-defense is good.
But also teaching kids self-confidence, and part of what self-defense does is it's confidence building.
Of course, all part of it, sure. Along with, not walking alone, taking a taxi, never riding the subway at, late hours. The things that maybe, people don't even think of. I was raised in the South Bronx, so I know.
Well, thank you for your suggestion.
But I'd like to know if he could make an announcement where this is given. And in the past, I've tried to call schools, and it's totally unaffordable.
Dennis, where do you go? Where do you turn, besides the Yellow Pages?
Well, that is an unfortunate situation, is that in order for a lot of, these are businesses that these karate schools were running and these self-defense schools, and so that's what happens. There's community-based programs, and you have to look for them. And, I don't want to be sort of a recommender of these particular programs, but it's like you can seek these things out. I mean,
but how do you check it out to know it's a good program?
You could, as a group, could go to a karate school or a self-defense school, and if the guy's got any credibility whatsoever, I mean, he'd be willing to put a program together for those people. I've done this over the years. I've done always community programs, and they've always worked out well because the people, respond to them. Because they don't have the time to spend the years to train, but they want to have something that they can rely upon. And as I said, if you, as a group want to get together, I mean, you can go to these people. And as I said, if they have any credibility whatsoever, I mean, they would definitely do it.
Teresa, thanks for your call. And let's go to our next caller. Sue is online from Queens. And Sue, you're on WOR. What's on your mind?
Hi, Claire.
Hi.
I just like to talk. I'm talking from first-hand experience. I live in Far Rockaway.
Mm-hmm.
My husband was mugged, suffered 8 years, subsequently died from related injuries from a mugging.
So you know firsthand how awful
it is. If I tell you that it not only affects the person that's unfortunate enough to have been mugged, but your whole family. Mm-hmm. My husband was 54 years old, an ex-infantry soldier who knew how to handle himself very well. But what do you do when two guys sneak up behind you with a baseball bat and break your head? Now, my solution is not these schools and all this. This is a lot of nonsense. Might be very, very nice for somebody who wants to handle himself, that gets into an argument with his neighbor and that kind of stuff. Very wonderful. But the bottom line is we need more police. We need the police to stop being inhibited by all the nonsense that's around him, this guy's psychological profile and all this hogwash. If you did the crime, you're going to do the time. They got to put these guys in jail. They got to keep them. They still don't know the two guys who attacked my husband. They've never been able to find them. And if you would see the books those police brought up to the hospital for my husband to look at, these guys are repeated offenders. They go in, they come out. The policeman if they get a policeman who can grab the guy, he puts him in jail. By the time the poor man gets finished with all the paperwork that he has to do, so this criminal shouldn't walk out with a complex, the guy is walking the street mugging somebody else.
Part of the problem with the system, but you're also bringing out a good point. It's not just the victim. The whole family is victimized by crime.
You suffer. Believe me, I had 2 children in high school at the time. And another thing they don't do that's proper, you have to wait. Now, my husband's hospital bills and doctor's bills was paid by the crime victims, okay? It ran upwards of $190,000, okay? But you, as a family, need money to live on. My husband couldn't go to work. He was only a working man. They put me through hell until I got $1 from them to feed and take care of my family.
Well, thank you for calling. It's also financial support, mental, emotional support that's needed by the victims and the victims' families. We're going to turn now to the news with Catherine Cowdery.
Thank you, Claire. Among the stories we're following, from one problem to another at Rikers Island. Shortly after a settlement was reached between correction officers and the city's correction department, a prison disturbance broke out. Correction officers had been blocking access to Rikers since Monday morning, demanding measures to make their job safer. Shortly after the agreement was announced, they learned of the disturbance and poured into buses to help put it down. At least 47 officers and inmates were injured. While President Bush says there's not much hope for a diplomatic solution to the Iraqi crisis, Iraq's Saddam Hussein may think otherwise. Jordan's King Hussein is expected to deliver to Bush on Thursday a letter from the Iraqi leader that says it's not too late to talk. The 7th day of jury deliberations will get underway in the morning in the trial of 3 teenagers on charges connected with the gang rape and beating of a woman jogger in Central Park.
Well, basically, all businesses and corporations have armed themselves. They have uniformed private Pinkertons all over the place, maybe 250,000 of them. They understand the problem precisely. And the average person in New York City, he's a crime victim, and everything is after the fact. When it happens, the police are there, and then you just become a statistic.
When those 4 scholars attacked Getz on the subway, first of all, they had 17 convictions among them, the 4 of them.